Welcome to Gleaning and Gathering. I'm your host, Eric Heimlich, and today I want to tell you the story of how Victory Acres began. I was just thinking about this morning. It was 19 years ago, this coming week, that I came to Victory Acres for a prayer retreat. And at that time, it was the 7-generation family farm where I had grown up. And I had been working in inner city Indianapolis for the past 8 years. At that time, there were just a lot of challenges that were going on. But I remember one in particular. There was a lady who came to the church where our congregation was meeting, and she asked to speak to the pastor. And I sat down with her, and she showed me a picture. It was a picture of a man that I recognized. He had come to our congregation different times, but I didn't exactly know his name. And she told me his name. Antoine Lamont Thomas. It was her son, and he had been found dead in a dumpster that previous week. And she went to pick up his belongings from the police station, and in his pocket there was this brochure from our church. And she knew that he had been there, and so she wanted to know, what did we know? What was going on in his life? I attended his funeral, and it was at that funeral that his 13-year-old daughter spoke, and I remember her saying something to the effect of, I know my daddy wasn't anything to most people, but he was my daddy, and I loved him. And that whole situation just broke my heart. Through that and a series of other just tragedies that I had experienced recently there in inner city Indianapolis, working among folks that were straight off the street or living in one of the 9 homeless shelters within a mile of where our congregation was meeting. It was those relationships that brought me here. And as I walked this farm, I sketched out what I could see happening here by faith. We were just a poor inner city church. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any resources. The chances of us being able to buy a farm were just minuscule. And yet, as I walked this farm those 3 days and just prayed and sought God, I believed that somehow God would make a way. And so as I went back to Indianapolis, I had the seed of an idea. It wasn't much, but the idea was to create some sort of cooperative, some sort of co-op that we would have folks come from the city to the farm and be able to do some sort of work, meaningful work here to help produce vegetables, and that would be a connection to the city. And so there would be people that could get produce, and we would have a place for people to do good work, and there would be something of value that would be created by that. And so as I began to research it further, I came up with this idea of community-supported agriculture that was currently working in many other places in the United States. And basically the idea was that people shared in the risk and the reward of the farm, and they would sign up and then they would receive a share of the produce. There was nothing like that here in Indiana at the time, at least not in our area. And the idea was really unformed. And so we went from not knowing really even what a CSA was in January to running one in March, which was a really steep learning curve. But God helped us, and we were able to put all that together and get the information out. And there were 23 very courageous families that stepped up and said, we will sign up. And they didn't know if they were going to get anything. There wasn't any history here. There were no pictures to show of vegetables growing. We weren't exactly sure what to expect. But I remember on that first planting day that we had in 2006, we put out a little blurb on localharvest.org about our farm planting day and brought friends from the inner city. And so here we were trying to string strings and get seeds relatively straight in rows planted in the ground. And in the middle of all that, there was a student from Taylor University that showed up. His name was Dan Perkins, and Dan had just finished a year-long apprenticeship with Caretaker Farm in Massachusetts. He had seen how CSAs were supposed to be run. He had participated in one that was really one of the premier CSAs probably in the country. And then he shows up and sees this rabble, planting seeds. And it's obvious that these people need help. And so he stuck around as a volunteer that first year and then came back after he finished his master's degree in environmental science at Taylor University and became our first official CSA manager. And what he did over the next few years was just incredible in terms of developing the processes and beginning to build a CSA operation here. And so we doubled that next year. There were 50 members, and the next year we doubled again, and we had 100 members. And it was an amazing time at Victory Acres just to see how God was providing, and there were things that were really beyond our ability to do. At that same time, Grandpa had just passed away, actually just before we were going to sign the papers the day that I was here to sign. He passed away before we could. And so it was in early 2006 that my grandmother signed the papers and Victory Acres officially began. And we started buying the farm on contract and began to make payments to her. And it provided her with an income, but it provided us with a place to begin to provide hospitality and healing to some of the friends that we had from inner city Indianapolis. It was my grandfather's dying wish, and while he didn't live to see Victory Acres established, it's really his legacy that lives on in this place. His legacy of care for family, his legacy of care for the land. And hardly a day goes by that I don't think, I wonder what Grandpa would say about this. For years, Victory Acres has primarily been known as a place for individuals and families in crisis. And we've helped people coming out of homelessness and out of addiction and out of prison, out of lots of different challenging life situations. We've done our best to do that work, but our ability to do that with our small, mostly volunteer workforce and limited budget has led us to really honestly evaluate what can we realistically do. There's something about coming out in the morning to find that your truck has been stolen or find that a guest is left and robbed the farm store that just kind of takes the wind out of your sails. I remember someone sharing with me that security and hospitality are really two sides of the same coin. You want to welcome everyone, but not everyone is welcoming. And so there are times when you have to just really honestly evaluate, is this the right thing to do? Again, we want to open the door, but is that the right thing to do for the people who are already here? God has blessed us with a wonderful space, and we've wanted to develop and to share that with as many people as we can. And so as we have prayed about this and looked at the next steps, developing Victory Acres really as a private Christian campground and providing space to Christian families, to church groups, to others that we believe we can continue to add the infrastructure that will bless even more people and serve His mission in the world is really what we feel like the next step should be. Over the past 5 years, we have welcomed young people to our Nehemiah discipleship program, and having young people here that love God and want to take the next step in following Jesus has just been a tremendous blessing. The farm is a great context for discipleship. There's just great work to do, life building, God-given work, and it's just a beautiful setting, welcoming people to that and giving them an opportunity to participate in what God is doing is a blessing to them, and it's also a blessing to the farm. Continuing to do work like that, but also welcoming other groups. We've had different church groups that have come and used the facilities and had their own programming, but the ability to be able to have a space like this that they can use has been a tremendous blessing to them. But it's also been a blessing to us to see the ways that God is using us to bless and to encourage His church. This is the direction that we believe God is leading us to go. If you have a group that you're interested in coming to Victory Acres and spending some time, I just want to encourage you to reach out to us. And you can go to our website, victoryacres.org, and there's information on how you can do that. Life happens, and special events carry special meaning. Time away can often be that reset button that you need in your everyday life. And so it can help us to form new patterns, gain new perspective. And if you don't take the time now, are you going to regret it later? So I want to challenge you to think about scheduling a time that you can just get away. And whether it's Victory Acres or another place, I want to encourage you to take a prayer retreat, similar to what I did in October 2005. Just a time to be able to get away and to spend time with God. I don't know where you're at right now in the season of life that you're in, but I think it's more important than ever before. We're surrounded with so much noise. We live in a 24/7 news cycle when it seems like every day there's something major happening in the world, and you're bombarded with that. And so I just want to encourage you to take time to be with God, not just take time to get things done in a quote unquote productive sort of way, but time to really reflect, time to spend with God in His Word, and just get perspective on the world. And if we can help you by providing a space to do that here at Victory Acres, that would be wonderful. It's one of the reasons why I believe that God has us here. So as we continue to try to develop this new focus, this new area of serving, not just families in crisis when they need it, but serving the church, serving people like you that need a place. There's a lot of work to do in that. And there are a lot of things that we're wanting to develop further. And one of those is a community center that would provide space for gatherings and for events and other things that we've dreamed of for years, but we're putting pen to paper and taking some next steps towards that. And as we do, it's a step of faith. It's a step of faith because up to this point, we've just kind of had what we've had and done what we can, using what we have. But looking towards that future and seeing that in order to really serve well, to have the events that we're wanting to have, we need the kinds of facilities that will enable us to do that. It's stretching me, but I believe that God has provided in the past, and I believe that He will continue to provide in the days and the weeks and the years ahead. And so if you're interested in learning more about that and coming and spending some time, I just encourage you to go to victoryacres.org and check that out. It's what I'm thinking about today. for gleaning and gathering. God bless.